Well, I'd like to talk about corruption now, because some guy called Dominic Grieve, who's the Attorney General, whatever that means, has been going on about corruption, that some of the immigrant communities, such as the Pakistanis in our great country, actually practice corruption, political corruption and so forth. And it's not the British way. Well, actually it is the British way, and I think that we are the most corrupt country in the world, and anybody that says any different is a fool, because we've been doing it longer than anybody else, and it's become so institutionalized we don't even recognize it as corruption. This guy, Dominic Grieve, is the Attorney General. To show you how corrupt it is, who elected him? I thought you ever seen these American movies where they have, like, you've got to elect the district attorney and all that, and the judges? Well, they're not elected over here, they're just appointed. Is that not a form of corruption? Well, maybe not. But anyway, why pick on the Bangladeshis and why pick on the Pakistanis when we ourselves, have got such corruption that it makes anything in the third world look like Mickey Mouse? Because the corruption is at the very top, the whole of the very top. Every single one of them is corrupt. If not financially, then morally. I'm not saying this from a moralistic point of view, but they are all morally corrupt. They're not fit to rule us or to have any control over our lives at all. I mean, corruption is everywhere. It's in the financial sector, the banks, all the big scandals, the governments, industry, education, every institution you can imagine. We're corrupt because we're ruled by a corrupt elite, the people from Eton that have been ruling us for like hundreds and hundreds of years. We're still ruled by the same old boy network. So that surely is itself corruption, isn't it? That you've got the same elite in charge for hundreds and hundreds of years, almost unbroken. That is corruption. And not only in government, but everywhere. It's the old boy network. It's spread throughout society, particularly amongst even into the middle classes as well, into politics, Freemasonry, lobbying, the police, as I say, the old boy network. This has been going on for 1,000 years, maybe longer, who knows, in this country. The same families, the same class. The same people that still own the land. For example, how can the royals own so much? It must be down to sort of institutionalized moral corruption. So there you have it. And there's scandals every day of corruption. Look at the big one about the co-op and the bank and the Reverend Flowers and his goings on. The utilities prices going up. The Murdoch trial at the moment, the Murdoch press, the Sun, the News of the World, the hacking, and of course all the corruption that went on there, the corrupt payments and so on. And what is also corrupt about this country is that we fucking don't do anything about it. We just sit down there in front of the televisions and complain about it or moan about it as we read about it over our breakfasts. So that again is another form of corruption, is actually putting up with corruption, which is scandalous. So our corruption is not like Africa, where you've got one sort of Mobutu-like figure, that embezzles the entire economy or of the country into their own family and so on, builds himself palaces and so on. Corruption is like, it's so endemic here that it actually reinforces the system completely, and there are millions of people complicit in it. Not the guy that takes a tip for emptying a bin when he shouldn't empty a bin, when he's doing his bin rounds. I'm not talking about that sort of corruption. I'm talking about corruption at the top. And it's the corruption at the top, that is the cement that keeps everything together. Without that corruption, I don't think the system would really exist. Corruption is part of the system, and this we have to realise. And I don't like this whole thing about other countries, you know, particularly third world countries or third world people in first world countries being more corrupt. We are more corrupt. Well, not me personally. I ain't got a chance, and I've millions of other people to be corrupt, and maybe we wouldn't be corrupt. But corruption is there at every single level, with their lies and their dissimulations and the financial corruption. It's all there, it's all linked in together, it's all part of the same thing. So yeah, our society is utterly corrupt from top to bottom. They do say occasionally, well, yeah, you know, the Reverend Flowers, he is a sort of a bad apple in the barrel, or a few dozen police have told lies about some riot or something. Well, it's just one or two bad apples. It's just always one or two bad apples. What they're saying is that the system is okay, except for a few sort of deviants, greedy people and stuff like that. But it's not that at all. The whole thing is wrong from beginning to end. Every judge is corrupt because the system is corrupt. No judge is elected. I mean, even if they were elected, they'd be corrupt. And they even say, like, oh, well, if judges are elected like they are in America, they could be corrupt. So what we'll do, we won't elect them. We'll just appoint them. And so therefore, because they've all been to Eton, because they've all been to Winchester, because they've all been to the Old Boys Club, then obviously there isn't going to be any corruption, is there? And we're mugs enough to believe it. Or do we believe it? I don't think a lot of us do. But the point is, whether we believe it or not, we don't do anything about it. It's about bloody time we started doing stuff about it. And I don't just mean withdrawing our accounts from the co-op. I think this thing about corruption covers other things as well. By claiming this country is not corrupt, it's like this is the best country in the world. And there's a lot of people on the left and so-called revolutionaries that say, well, yes, there is corruption all over, even in other parts of Europe, maybe even in America, and they might need to have a revolution, you know, which may be bloody or may not be bloody, but be a revolution, a recognisable incidence of revolution. But not here, you know, it's not the British way of doing things, is it? Well, if we haven't got any corruption over here, then obviously we have no need to have a revolution because all we need to do is vote and everything will be all right. Well, that itself is corruption as well. Corruption is tolerated in society. Look at all the abuse in the kids' homes. That's been going on and on for decades, maybe hundreds of years. That's corruption as well. And nothing's been done about it. And nothing will be done about it. It's on an industrial scale. It has to be done away with. The whole of society has to change. And we're the people that can do it. The people that are corrupt cannot do it. They are corrupt. They will just make it corrupt again. They'll just bring it around to their way. They have to be overthrown. They have to be got rid of, or their power's got to be got rid of. Their money's got to be got rid of. We've got to seize back. We've got to create a new society through the revolutionary process, which is what I always say. So yeah, the only way to combat corruption is to overthrow this corrupt society. I know there's just one other thing I'd like to add about the bad apple. I think that that's a bad argument. Because it means if there's a bad apple, then there's good apples. You put your hand in the barrel and you bring out a bad apple and you say, look, it's a bad apple, but the rest of the barrel's all right. The bad apple is just a sleight of hand. It's a magician's trick. The barrel, if you care to look in it, has got no bad apples in it at all. Has got no good apples. All it's got is some sort of horrendous, stinking slurry. That's what's in the barrel in reality. So let's get that barrel and let's throw it overboard and let's be done with it, right? And that's my message on corruption for today.